So from your perspective, how is trust tied to remote work?
It really goes hand in hand, I think, with our culture of being asynchronous and being remote first.
Trust and autonomy is a value that, to me, is very much intertwined with asynchronous and remote first. And since Levels is 100% asynchronous and remote first, there's no office to go to, and thus every employee is trusted to get their work done on their own schedule with total autonomy. However, trust also manifests in other ways at Levels, like the company's decision to lean towards transparency and sharing key documents like investor updates. This video shows how trust, autonomy, and transparency are all intertwined at Levels.
If you don't trust your coworkers, I don't know how that's gonna work for remote jobs.
We have that trust that if you need to talk to somebody, you will. Otherwise, we're going to try to give you as much freedom as possible.
In an environment where there's no such thing as FaceTime, in the sense that we don't have meetings, so you're not forced to be on the phone with somebody. We also don't have an office.
Optics about who shows up at the office at what time and who leaves last and who stays for dinner. Like all of that's out the window, and I just trust that people are doing their job.
Mm-hmm. I would argue that measuring someone by like what's on their screen when I walk by them is a pretty bad way to measure someone's output.
Every bit of trust really matters, and that really plays an impact into how much work we're able to get done every week and every day, and the progress we can make towards the goal.
And that progress really drives trust across the team, and it's happening on so many fronts.
If you don't trust individual people in the company, how can you trust the steering effect they have on products and customer experience?
In some other places, being trusted is an incremental process. Levels is different because once you join the company, you will earn 100% of trust from day one.
Right.
Really, we trust people here to take on as much as they feel comfortable taking on, and letting people run with the projects that they're working on and loop in people when they need to.
Everybody at the company is free to come up with an idea and make a change or suggestion and improve the product.
As a part of our program, we give people a device that breaks their skin. It is not very invasive, but it is invasive. And I think anything less than complete transparency from us on all topics is unacceptable for such an intimate device.
We brought you on board because we think you are exceptional at what you're doing. That is why we're granting you the access to be part of a team that values async and values being remote, because you have full autonomy to do your work when you want. And so trust and autonomy, they're the byproduct of being async and being remote.
If you're passionate about something, it doesn't require somebody standing behind you to make sure that you're sitting there doing work instead of watching cat videos.
Sure.
It just happens. You want to do it. You think about it when you're not working. And that is ultimately what we select for.
One of the phrases I think about for a startup is that you're constantly deciding what fires to put out, and you're letting other fires burn.
When there are questions, when there are roadblocks, that they have the control to move the project forward without needing input along the way.
It doesn't mean that everyone needs to agree on everything all the time. It's just that we trust you to make a decision, even if we don't necessarily agree on it. And so I think that's where the trust and autonomy comes from, is this ability to say, you do great work when you do great work. Nobody's judging you on when you're getting it done. Just get it done, and get it done fast, and be scrappy about it.
Can you say full stop?
Full stop.
I think the autonomy piece gets trickier as the organization gets bigger. It works now because everybody we've hired is pretty high level, so everybody can kind of own a space on their own. When content has 10 people in it or 15 people in it, including some pretty junior people who are still learning, defining autonomy within their role, I think, is certainly possible, but slightly different. It's going to mean something slightly different than it does now.
Can you talk a little bit about openness, more specifically openness via investor updates?
Most companies don't trust their own people, let alone people outside their network, with information about the existential problems that they're facing. I think by flipping that on its head and being very transparent about what it is that Levels needs to solve for in order to be successful, it's a bit freeing.
We've seen by sharing that context with contractors, with investors, with friends of the company, sometimes even with our community members, that they gain an understanding and an appreciation for what the company's mission is and for how we're going about solving that problem.
Right.
I was initially a little on the fence. I was like thinking about this opportunity and thinking about CGMs and levels and everything. And then I started getting the investor updates.
Before I even started at Levels, the amount of information that I received about the company and how much I could actually understand and read and just keep going memo to memo, like, wow, I know more about Levels than I do the company I've been working at for 5 years.
All companies want to posture as though they have it all figured out, everything's perfect. And to be frank, yeah, it takes a little bit of an adjustment to put that information out in the world. But once you've done it, people really, really appreciate, they love, in fact, that transparency.
Yeah.
And when you show your cards in that way, it's kind of clear that you're not hiding anything and that you could use the support and invite it in.
You sort of get to know everybody before joining because there are these Friday Forum videos where you watch them week after week.
All right. Getting started here, August 20th, Friday Forum.
That was part of what made me want to join Levels, seeing that energy, that every week there were big things to report.
Let's talk a little bit about the flexibility remote work offers.
Something that I think is really important is freeing up more of your own time.
We want people to truly be able to work on a schedule that works best for them.
It's been wonderful for us to be able to hire the best person for the job no matter where they are. Like, we literally don't care.
In the winter, I love to ski, so I was able to travel out to Salt Lake and ski every week, Great Mountains, and then come back to Vermont in the summer, which is where I like to be this time of year.
I think a lot of the people that work for Levels are very creative, and having this sense of remote work gives you that ability to be more creative on your own time, but you're still getting your work done.
There isn't the expectation that you have to be responding in real time to everyone around you. It's really about structuring your day and structuring your work schedule for what works best for your productivity.
I work 80 to 100 hour weeks, and I've never come close to burnout. I've been doing this for a decade, largely because I like what I do. People ask me what my hobbies are, and it's like, well, writing software, writing long-form documentation.
Superhuman snippets.
Yeah, it's like my hobbies are generally work adjacent at a minimum. If people see that, like, oh, the vacation policy is 6 weeks of vacation, but nobody takes vacation here, then they're not going to take vacation.
So there are things like mandatory week off a quarter, and it kind of sounds fluffy, but actually it's like, if you're an athlete, if you don't take rest days, you might have short-term benefits, but long-term, you're probably going to be in trouble.
Whatever it is, you have control over that. And I think having control over your life really breeds happiness.
Jeremy, I'm just curious, what is the Levels backend written in?
It's written in TypeScript, which of course is Node.js underneath. That's it, basically.
That is where my engineering knowledge ends. We could check that off and move on to culture now.